Thank you guys for hitting the download button. My name is AJW, and I am ready to deliver some thought-provoking podcasts. You are listening to Iron Fist Wrestlerama, and for the first time, just like I did with my other podcast, B-Unit Chat, I'm recording on video for the first time for my YouTube channel. So follow me on there as well. The best way to find this podcast is to follow me on Twitter, AJW at B-Unit Social 101. Now let me go ahead and jump into some commentary for this latest news on what's been going on in wrestling. I'm going to start off with the story that I actually read on the Bleacher Report. There was a report, if many of you remember the wrestler Bill DeMott, he did a lot of work at Tough Enough and a great deal of work in the developmental division, and he's been heavily involved in the training process for many years. Well, I'm pretty stunned to commentate that he actually has a pending lawsuit. And what's been going on was that there were allegations against him that he was using very vicious tactics and training, even occasionally some racial slurs. Just very abusive tactics, which just really left these people no choice on to bring these allegations forward. Now, the only way that these plaintiffs are going to have a case, it's going to depend on their evidence, on what effect that it's had on them. Not to say that they don't have a case. I'm simply saying that it depends on the length of time that it took for them to put a claim forward with this case. But, I mean, nonetheless, it's stunning because he was always perceived as a person who was a great mentor, just an outstanding coach. And it's absolutely shocking news to hear. But I mean, we'll wait and see how this is going to play out. I'll follow some more comments on this feed later on. I'm going to move on into some more relevant content from this week. And I would definitely say the biggest highlight was, this wasn't on my list actually, but there was a little bit more, of course, for those of you that watched the past episode of Monday Night Raw, where Triple H actually brought Booker T into the ring after speaking about the confrontation between him and Sting. And it was a pretty intense, I mean, for those of you that watch Flashback, it was an intense confrontation. I mean, Sting was using his usual promo cutting that he did in WCW, where he used more of that silent promo. But there were some questions that actually came up on Steve Austin's podcast, actually, and I encourage you guys to listen to the latest episode. It was a great episode. Just a lot of questions came from the fans. There was one question that really stood out for me from a fan. He asked whether when Sting does his promo cutting, should he at some point say something about what's going on in the storyline? Should he, in other words, should he vocalize the storyline? So, what's my opinion on that? I think it's working so far. I think it's more of a, if it isn't broke, don't fix it. I think that there could be a little bit more physicality in the confrontation, but let's not forget that, I mean, Sting's contract, he's not contracted as a full-time wrestler. I think one unanswered question that I simply have is, after WrestleMania, what's his next step going to really be? Is he going to make that long-time commitment? Will he commit for another year? Remember my dream match that I came up with last a couple of podcasts ago, where I said that the Icon Sting versus The Undertaker was one of my dream matches? Well, what if he was to last for another year, maybe to consider that confrontation? Because I would say that those are the two most loyal people to their brands. It would definitely stir up a great deal of conflict. Just depends on the time that Mark's willing to put in. Depends on his physical condition. Speaking of Undertaker, so many of you have been following the storyline between Bray Wyatt and Undertaker, where, you know, Bray Wyatt's been using a great deal of antics to call out the Undertaker. I think overall Bray Wyatt's character really seems to be the favorite for a lot of fans. It's unique, it's dynamic, it's been organic, it was very disruptive. And that's just one of the key things about Bray Wyatt that's really gravitated him towards the fans. It was disruptive, it was completely unexpected, and his character is just very original. I might honestly say, though, maybe him calling out The Undertaker could have possibly been too soon. I think maybe another year or so, maybe him getting a little bit more time on the stage at WrestleMania. But I guess what's going on there in creative is an unanswered question, really. Are they having a hard time finding the right person, really, to go against Bray Wyatt? Because his character completely, it works. It definitely works. It's organic, and I think that it's going to be a long-lasting thing. But I think what's going on here is, while he has a unique persona, I'm not sure if there's enough other talent on the roster that could really withstand, that could really be a worthy opponent for him. Maybe the only other choice after, you know, if in fact Undertaker's going to face him, because again, we got to think here. I mean, Undertaker's fit, or Mark Holloway, he's reached his 50s. Is he really in the physical condition to do this? If you look all over social media, I even commented on one Facebook page that I'm a little concerned about Mark's condition. Is he in the condition to do this? And okay, let's just say that maybe he's in decent physical shape and health internally. How will it uphold the match? And how is that match really going to sell? The type of match that a lot of fans look forward to is the type of match that was between Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. Nobody is ever going to forget that match, because it was very close. So you just gotta kind of ask yourself, is it really what the fans want? Because all over social media, the comments are very polarized. Not to say, I mean, ultimately it's creative's decision. I mean, they're gonna do what they feel, and I don't mean to use the rhetoric of the authority, but they're gonna do what's right for the business. So who's to say that? I think that's my big concern. Is this match gonna live up to the hype? I mean, I'm not sure. What a lot of fans are used to is a great deal of confrontation and build-up in the storyline. A lot of face-to-face build-up in the storyline. A lot of mind games. That's what people are used to. And maybe that's why in the last maybe couple of years, maybe WrestleMania has not... the last couple of WrestleManias haven't been the greatest. And it's probably because the build-up to the storylines is just not as intense as they used to be. And that's really what it's going to take. Speaking of storyline build-ups, there is one positive thing that I'm seeing, and I'm talking about the match between Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. Both two talented individuals. I mean, of course, for those of you that paid attention to the match, though, Roman Reigns was getting a lot of "you can't wrestle" chants. It seemed like Roman Reigns knew that this was the defining moment for him. Apologize for that, you guys. My computer kind of shut down on me. But I think this was a defining moment for Roman Reigns to really prove to the fans he does have the ability to show a versatility of moves. He was getting a countless amount of "you can't wrestle" chants throughout the match before you started seeing a versatility of moves that we haven't seen out of him before. We were even starting to see that in at Fastlane. I caught when he did a move that looked like the Luthez press. I saw another move. It was a fast move. It looks like where Seth Rollins was running against him, and then he grappled him into what looked like a pump handle slam. I hope some of you are familiar with the moves that I'm talking about here, because the commentators don't even mention a lot of moves anymore. I only remember these moves because, I mean, the only reason I know a lot of these moves is because of the amount of video gaming that I did in wrestling. So they tell you a lot of the moves that are in there. So, you know, definitely pay attention to those. For those of you who video game on the new WWE game, pay attention to them. That's a good way to get an education of what moves that you're seeing. We are starting to see more versatility out of Roman Reigns. And I noticed once that versatility came out, it quieted down. I didn't hear any more of those chants. There's a lot of public opinion that people believe he's still not the right opponent for Brock Lesnar, but my only question really is who else would really be the right opponent for him? And that's something that I'm going to address, actually. The fact that fans are saying that he can't wrestle. Well, here's one missing link that I think would really help Roman Reigns. Something that, and listen, you know, I'm not his agent, I'm not his promoter, I'm not anything for him. But here's the thing. I'm sure a lot of you would agree with me that this would work for him. Why not? If the company is restricting a lot of high impact moves, because if any of you followed my previous podcast, you would know that there's still a lot of pending lawsuits because of the after effects of a lot of the moves, a lot of concussions, a lot of head injuries. But why not Roman Reigns maybe in the next 25, 24, whatever time we have before WrestleMania, take some time to practice some submission moves? Because that's where that is where Brock Lesnar's accolades are. He's a submission expert. He's definitely a prominent striker in the UFC. Definitely a submission expert. I mean, look at that Kimura lock. I think that's a missing link from him. And I think it's something that could work for him as a powerhouse. Become more of a submission expert. Because it would definitely work for him. And that's something that would definitely make it look a little more evenly matched. It's not gonna... I can honestly say this isn't gonna be... Hopefully it's not a one-sided match at WrestleMania. I think that's what a lot of us are hoping for. That it's not a one-sided match. And I think that's probably what a lot of fans are worried about. We don't want to see a one-sided match at WrestleMania. We want this to go back and forth. I think what we need to see in the next couple of weeks is a build-up and an evolution of more versatility in moves for them to prove that this match is truly going to live up to the hype. And here's the next thing that I think should happen in the build-up to the storyline. And yes, I get it. Brock Lesnar's contract. It's part-time, but why not a little bit more face time? I mean, no disrespect to Paul Heyman. He's cutting the promos for him. But again, you know, you're talking to a fan who knows of what intense buildup was. Because I watched the Attitude Era. I'm going to throw out an example for you, for many of you to watch. I challenge a lot of you watching this. Watch the buildup between The Undertaker and Triple H. Hands down, by far, one of the best buildups to one of the biggest brawls that I've ever seen. No, not WrestleMania 27. I'm talking about WrestleMania 17. One of the last biggest events of the Attitude Era. Watch that match. No, not the match. Well, watch both the build-up and the match, and you will see what I'm talking about. You will see how it kept the fans interested in the storyline. So just keep that in mind. Watch it and just kind of think about what I said here. That's the build-up that has always worked. I also challenge many of you, watch the build-up. Also, same pay-per-view, WrestleMania 17. Watch the build-up between Stone Cold and The Rock. Watch that build-up. Again, one of the most intense storyline build-ups that I think at least I've ever seen. So watch those, for example, and you will see what I'm talking about. Do we think that creatives may be going to go into that direction? I don't know. But ultimately, what a lot of us want as fans, we want to see a back and forth match. So hopefully, in the next 25 days, the promo cutting evolves a little more. The physicality, his versatility in in-ring moves, hopefully in submissions, as well as his high-impact moves, evolves. The spear that we saw that he did to Seth Rollins when he flew from the turnbuckle, definitely a good example. But let's remember this: you're not going to catch Brock Lesnar jumping off of the turnbuckle. That's not his accolade. That's not his style. And the thing that I'm wondering is how many versatile moves is he going to be able to put on him? Because I know a lot of Brock Lesnar's moves. I remember he had one move called the Russian neckbreaker, which looks like he holds the he doesn't use this move anymore, but he could. I mean, he could bring it back. For those of you that watched him in the early days, it was like a belly-to-back suplex. He held him upside down, and then he was like grappling him around the ring. He did it like a few times. That was one of my favorite moves that I've seen from him. Then there was another one. I think it was an inverted suplex. See, unfortunately, I'm not at liberty to play any videos due to copyright reasons, but if I could, I would play it to you. But look at, if any of you still maybe own the game, WWE SmackDown, Shut Your Mouth, or Here Comes the Pain, you'll see what I'm talking about. I gotta move on now. So I have my WrestleMania, I have my my flashback moment, which I like to do every week. It's some videos from the past that just really stand out for me. And for those of you who are fans of the Attitude Era, you would remember the build-up between The Rock and the McMahon family and DX, building up to the match at Backlash. It was the episode on SmackDown where there were rumors whether or not Steve Austin was going to come back. They were livid. There were a lot of mind games going on. The Rock played a great deal of mind games with DX, the cardboard cutout. There was a janitor that looked like Stone Cold that Triple H beat up. There was just a wide range of things. The rattlesnake in the bag. Definitely encourage you to watch that. One of the best endings to SmackDown I ever saw, because the conclusion of it was when Steve Austin got on the crane And he was saying, well, this is what happens when you try to get your hands on me. And he got the crane, got the, looked like a barricade for the road, and dropped it on the DX Express and blew it up. Definitely encourage you to watch that video. Another example of one of the greatest build-ups. Got my WrestleMania flashback as well. From WrestleMania 17, the triple threat tag team TLC match between the Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian, and the Hardys. If you haven't watched that, please watch that match. Biggest moment of that match was when, I believe it was Matt Hardy and Bubba Ray Dudley on top of the 20-foot ladder, where Rhino got involved in the match, pushed them off the ladder. There was like a tower of tables outside of the ring, and they fell in, and it looked like, it literally looked like a tornado ripped through the outside of the ring. Definitely encourage you to watch that. There was another thing on Steve Austin's podcast that was mentioned, which was quite interesting. There was a mixture of speculations where some people believe that the fans were completely disengaged, and there were other people that believed it was an acoustic issue. On Austin's podcast, he believed it was an acoustic issue. Some people who were calling in said that it was an issue that the fans just weren't engaged. I mean, I felt, to be honest with you, I think a crowd loud enough, I don't know. I don't think that there's much of a sound issue because I could hear the commentators just fine, so why would the crowd be an issue? It happens. Other towns are different in reactions. Maybe the card, I don't know, could possibly be that maybe the card just wasn't what the fans believed. I believe, in my humble opinion, that Fastlane was a promo building pay-per-view. That's what it was. It wasn't a horrible pay-per-view, but promo building. So that's my take on that. My match of the week before I close out this podcast, for those of you that followed NXT, the past episode between the Women's Championship match, the NXT Women's Championship match between Charlotte Flair and Sasha Banks, yes, Divas match was probably one of the most intense Divas matches that I've seen. The match was believable enough that we thought that the title was going to change hands. The way that the match ended, of course, maybe it wasn't to the fans' liking. However, great build-up for the storyline. The way Sasha Banks' antics of winning with their foot on the ropes, haven't seen that antic since I could remember. Definitely a good way to keep the storyline going. Going to continue to keep the fans interested. It's keeping me interested. And then I would say my storyline of this podcast is definitely the tension and friction between Alex Riley and Owens. Remember I told you about last week when Owens, of course, threw Alex Riley over it. Well, if you guys watched the show, it opened up with Alex Riley demanding a match with Owens, and with William Regal saying that, well, you got to sign a talent contract. He was basically saying you can't have your cake and eat it. So I think what's happening here is this is the evolution of Alex Riley slowly creeping his way back into getting into the ring. I pretty much think that that was a shoot promo for giving fans an indication that he's going to be getting back in the ring very soon, which I think it's better for him. I think it's better for him. Hopefully we'll see a much more aggressive side of Alex Riley. The only thing is, what I think I anticipate in the storyline is maybe Alex Riley will allow his anger to kind of overtake him to where Owens is probably going to injure him, take him out, probably rehabilitate, give Riley time to train. So it's probably going to basically give him time to train, to kind of pitch to creative that he's ready. I think this is a sign in the back of the locker room. He must have pitched to creative. He's ready to step out of the commentary booth and get in the ring, really show what he's made of. He's still young. He's got what it takes. Match that I'm definitely anticipating is Finn Balor versus Owens. It's going to be a very, very intense matchup. Hopefully it lives up to the hype. And that's pretty much my conclusion of my podcast. I'll definitely be doing more commentary on the road to WrestleMania. I encourage you guys to tweet to me. Tell me how many of you are going to WrestleMania. I think maybe after the podcast too. I would like an opportunity to be able to take phone calls. I mean, I'm personally not going to WrestleMania, but it would be great to really get a perspective of what the fans experience, the fans' reaction, the crowd, the energy, and everything. So you've been listening to Iron Fist Wrestlerama podcast. Follow me on Twitter, AJW at BUnit Social 101, and tune in next week for some more commentary going on in the world of wrestling.